traveling with a toddler, no matter what their situation is always challenging. And my husband and I, we were living in New York and in Seattle at the same time, so we were going back and forth as often as we could. And on one trip, I needed to make that by myself without my husband, which I had never done before with my son, especially since the diagnosis. And he tends to really gravitate towards anything that has motion involved with it, whether it's an elevator, an escalator, a moving sidewalk, a swing. He loves to be in cars, trains, anything, buses, anything that moves where he can feel the force of gravity against his body, he's a big fan of. So the flight from JFK into Seattle was delayed 2 hours. And so I ended up finding a moving sidewalk to get my son on. And so we just kept going back and forth for probably about 45 minutes. And I just wanted to stay near the gate in case the flight was called. And they immediately said, you know, within 45 minutes, okay, we're boarding, let's go. And I made the grave mistake of just picking up my son without giving any warning or one more minute or any notice to him. And he had what I now know is a full-on autistic tantrum. And he was doing the plank and arching his back, and there was nothing that was going to soothe him. And I knew we had to get on this flight. It was the last one of the day, so I just carried him onto the plane, and with him arching his back, and sat down with him, and was trying with all my might to try to calm him down. But there's no reasoning with a 2-year-old, let alone an autistic child. And he was just completely out of his mind, ballistic. And so everybody ended up boarding the plane, and we were the folks that were getting the stares and the odd looks, and everybody was sitting down. They were waiting to close the door, and my son was still screaming and just planking and hitting me. And by this point, we're about 45 minutes into the tantrum, and the flight attendant had come back and let me know that she had just talked to the pilot, and that if my son continued, we were going to be asked to board the plane. That the rules were that an unruly individual, no matter what the age is or the situation, is an unruly individual and will be asked to board. Normally, I would not tell someone that my son's autistic. I don't tend to wear that on my sleeve as much unless there's a situation like this where it needs to be known. So I just said to her, you know, he's autistic, and I apologize, but he's protected here, and I'm doing the best I can. And, you know, if you can give us just a few minutes, hopefully this will pass. And in the same minute, a gentleman 2 rows up, stood up, turned around, pointed right at me, and just said, "I hope you have earplugs for all of us." And I just lost it. I mean, there was nothing I could do. I mean, clearly this was not a normal situation, and I felt like just, you know, bullhorning. My son's autistic. I apologize. You know, he doesn't understand what's going on here. He just wanted to get back to the moving sidewalk and where he was at. And the flight attendant came back with a can of Coke and a bag of cookies and put it down and said, "You have 5 minutes, and then we're going to ask you to board." And I just remember feeling so paralyzed because there was nothing that I could do to protect not only our rights, but also make everybody else feel comfortable and just make this stop. And I was caught between, do I scoop them up and head on out and then figure out where to stay for the night, or do I just, you know, wait this out and hope that these people have some compassion for that? But I just said to the flight attendant, you know, through tears and just hysteria, like, he's autistic. You don't understand. This is normal for an autistic child. I just need a few more minutes. Like, he will calm down, but it takes about an hour, and we're at the end of that hour. And she said, "Oh, well, I'm just going to stand here and watch." And within 5 minutes, my son just stopped, calmed down, and fell asleep for the entire flight. But it was that anxiety and that just absolute feeling of lack of control and not knowing what to do and not having any sympathy from anybody. And when we finally took off in the air, the woman next to me leaned over and said, "I understand. I have a child who's autistic." And I thought it would have been nice if she would have spoke up, you know, 15 minutes ago, but it was at that moment I could finally just cry and cry and cry because there was somebody that understood. but yet I was with 350 people that did not understand.